We want to get to Phil LeBeau, who's got more news for us about a major car manufacturing plant in this country that is going to be stopping production. Phil.
David, I believe this is the last final assembly plant that is still functioning in this country. It is the BMW plant down in Spartanburg, South Carolina. It will be shutting down starting this Friday. They're going to shut it down for 2 weeks. The significance here is that this is BMW's largest plant worldwide. I think last year they built 420,000 vehicles. A good chunk of those are exported, many to Asia. But obviously, the world has changed when it comes to vehicle demand. And in addition to the news about BMW, let me give you some sense of how much demand has changed, guys. New estimate from IHS Markit in terms of auto sales in the U.S. this year, dropping down to a sales rate of 14.4 million vehicles. Just for comparison, the U.S. last year vehicle sales were 17 million, new vehicle sales. Now the expectation, 14.4 million for the year, maybe as low as 11 million for the month of March.
Hey,
yeah,
Phil.
you know, Phil, yesterday we had Adam Jonas join us from Morgan Stanley. He had 13.5 million SAR in other words, for the year. Phil, how much of this is about their workers in South Carolina and the concern about the virus versus that significant depletion in demand?
It's mainly about workers and mainly about the shelter-in-place orders, especially for the supply chain. We're to the point now where, you know, all of the automakers, generally speaking, they're all using the same suppliers. They may be building different parts with different specifications, but generally speaking, they're using most of the same suppliers. Well, many of those suppliers, especially those in the upper Midwest, they're in states that have shelter-in-place orders. So not only do you have the big three shutting down their plants, but we've seen it from Honda and Toyota, now BMW. And so the supply chain is shut down. It's going to be hard to build vehicles. And while we haven't seen it yet in South Carolina, at least I don't think they have a shelter in place, I mean, we see what's happening around the country. It's moving away from New York and Illinois and California and hitting other states. I wouldn't be surprised if ultimately that's part of the decision that BMW made in terms of what happens in South Carolina.
Phil, what did we get down to in 2008, 2009? I remember we were so thrilled when we got to 12.5 in 2010. We were just like, wow, happy days are here again in that case.
You were down to about 10.2, 10.3 million. And that was the low point before they started slowly moving higher, you know, and it was a gradual, it'd go up to 11, then up to 12.2 million as you got into 2010, 11, 12. And that's, Jim, what's interesting here is after that happened and we had GM and Fiat Chrysler go through the government bankruptcies and Ford, well, it didn't go through a bankruptcy, did the same thing in terms of redoing its balance sheet. They all said the same thing. If we ever have something like this again, we've got a fortress balance sheet. We've got a balance sheet so that we can afford, if the industry goes down to 10 million in volume, we'll be okay. We won't have to see things collapsing as we did back in 08. Nobody ever thought that we'd be in that position, but it's getting maybe not as bad in terms of overall volume, but it's a big drop going on right now.